Welcome to Sasa Podcast. Today our guest is Christine. Hi, Christine.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Christine, thanks for being here too. You are the research director at the British Council, right?
That's right, yes.
Can you tell us more about your job and the Next Generation program?
Sure. So my job is Director of Research for the British Council. I guess I should maybe just briefly introduce the British Council. So it's the UK's Organisation for Cultural and Education Links, but basically we try and make connections between people in the UK and the rest of the world, and obviously Iraq is part of that. As Director of Research, I have a team who support our colleagues around the world to do research. And we do that for lots of different reasons and in lots of different ways. So we do that for our work in arts and culture, also our work in education and in language and understanding international links. But a really, really key part of that is our research with and about and for young people. And that's what Next Generation is. Next Generation has been going since 2009. And we have research in over 20 countries, and that includes the UK, countries across Europe, Africa, Asia, the Middle East. And last year, so 2024, we welcomed Iraq to the Next Generation family.
Nice. So if you worked globally in different countries, what patterns do you think, do you see kept coming up?
Yeah, there are a few things that you see time and time again. So one of them is young people in education. So there's sort of an upside and a downside to that. So one thing we see all the time is young people, wherever they are in the world, are really passionate about education. They see education as transformative. It's like a key that can unlock a better future for them. They feel really strongly about it. They want it to work for them. They want it to work for their peers. They see that a more educated youth is going to be better for their communities and their families and their country as well. I guess the downside, and this is common pretty much wherever you are, is young people don't always feel that their education is suitable for them. And I saw that in the UK when we did the research previously, but I've seen that in Europe, and as well as I said, Africa and Asia and wherever we've done this. And I think there's a couple of different facets for that. One is, I think young people think that their education should be more related to the real world. So they want more skills. They want something that will really help them be good citizens, but also be good employees, be great entrepreneurs, perhaps start their own businesses. And they're saying we're not really getting that from our education at the moment. And the flip side is, that employers are also saying the young people don't necessarily have the skills. But that's not the fault of the young people. That is the fault of an education system. So I think it's really important that policymakers listen to that and listen to businesses and listen to the employers out there and saying, okay, so what should the education do for them? I think what I also see is young people really recognise what the skills of the future are. And they say, we need more in there about digital skills, because that will also help us navigate life, and misinformation and the media and so on. But they want more creativity, actually. So some of the ways we learn, perhaps traditionally, about learning from books, learning things off by heart, they're going, actually, the world is really fast-paced, it's moving really fast. A lot of us want creative skills because we think that's what we need for the future.
Okay, so I thought that's a local issue. Apparently, it's a global issue.
Absolutely a global issue. I've seen that in countries, even where you'd say the education system is really good. So I remember we did Next Generation Germany, and young people there were going, our education is good. There's nothing particularly wrong with the system, but we don't think we're learning all the things that we need, because we understand as young people, they're going, we can see what's out there. We know how fast things are moving. We can see what the skills are. We can see maybe the new lines of employment that are opening up. And our education system is good, but it's not giving us those things. So it's definitely not solely an Iraqi issue.
Yeah. And that's probably an opportunity for universities,
absolutely,
to develop their curriculum, maybe, or
schools, universities, wherever. I remember when we did this in the UK back in 2016. We have done another one since then, but even then, I think 50% of young people in the UK said, the education we're not getting, it's not giving us the skills for work, and it's not actually giving us the skills for life. And they're looking to their family, yes, but also to their education to say, well, how do we navigate the world? How do you get a job? How do you write a CV? How do you rent an apartment? What do you do if you need to get a loan from a bank? I don't understand how interest works. I don't understand these things. So there was a whole range of things, I think, where I think the education system doesn't have to take the place of the family, but I think it can say, you know, that there are skills that people want for life and that they deserve to get those. So I think if you look at education as a journey from primary school, senior school, maybe to further and higher education, all along those ways, I think we need to be going, what is it these young people need now and for the future?
Let's move to the Iraqi report. Mm-hmm. What did you find interesting about the Iraqi report, like the results and findings?
So I think what always makes me quite happy is when you can see, when you do see those patterns that are out there. And one thing I notice time and time again that I definitely see in the Iraqi one is levels of optimism and resilience. It's a double-edged sword in a way. I think when we did the UK research last year, young people said, there's this sort of forced resilience, like we have to be resilient because life is really tough. And you can definitely see that with the Iraqi report. But at the same time, it's good to see those levels of optimism, and I'm pleased to see that in Iraq. And this is my third visit, I should say, to Iraq. This country has a very special place in my heart. And it's really good to see that optimism remaining, and you can see young people really sort of seizing their future. I think I was pleased to see, again, young people in Iraq, much as their counterparts around the world, they're often disillusioned with formal politics and formal political systems. And that's a shame. And I think politicians, as always, wherever they are in the world, need to listen and work out why that is. But you do see young people who have a really strong commitment to their community, to their societies and to their country, and they want to be able to work towards that. So they may be finding other ways to have influence, to make a difference, you know, to have an impact. So I think that's really strong, that's really positive. So I think the Iraq research, it's quite a big report, so definitely worth reading it all the way through. It's got positives and negatives, and again, that's something I see wherever we do this research.
When I read the Iraqi report, I immediately went to the UK report.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed that the Iraqi report is 67 pages, while the report for the UK is 40 only, 40 something. So I was like, wow.
Iraqi young people had a lot to say, and that's good. And we also wanted to see a few, work with a few different communities. So there was a real interest working with young people in Iraq with disabilities, for example, because I know Iraq has one of the highest proportions in the world of people with disabilities. So my very first visit yesterday, since I've been here, was to the Iraqi Alliance of Disabled Organizations, again, to talk to young people about their needs, whether that's about accessibility and inclusion in education, or whether that's about allowing them to have their rights and claiming their rights, or whether that's about educating the wider public about people with disabilities and how to ensure that they too have a voice in Iraqi society, because they too can build that future. So that's one of the reasons it was a little bit longer, I think. But there was a lot to say, and we wanted to get it in there.
And what I have in mind is that if you made those visits, and apparently, how long have you been in Iraq?
This is only my second day. Oh, okay. I arrived late.
Then what policy recommendations do you have based on what you've seen and what you've read?
Well, there are policy recommendations in the research, but for me, so I would turn that around slightly. It's not really for me to make those recommendations, right? I'm not an Iraqi citizen. I don't understand enough about the nuance of the country. It's my third time here, but I've still got so much to learn. It's a big country. It's really complex. So I probably wouldn't make policy recommendations. The recommendations I would make is read the report, engage with it, engage with what's in there, and then engage with the young people about those findings. And that's something we do with the research all of the time. And to be honest, I would recommend to any researcher who's listening to this, you want to think about the impact you're having, you want to think about the people you're working with, but you don't necessarily own the way forward. So we try and make the research quite participatory in that there's young people involved throughout. So we sort of test the survey with them at the start. There's a young people who are part of an advisory group. So they take it from start to finish. And that gives them a sense of ownership, I hope, of the research. ownership of the findings, and it gives them the mandate, really, to go out and take this into their communities, take this to leaders, take this to policymakers, and say, let's work this through together. This isn't a young people against old people thing. This isn't about, young people and policymakers who have to be enemies of each other. It's about going, how do we work together? And I think that's what's really crucial about the way we want to approach the research. It's not just about Iraqi youth, it's kind of for them and it's with them too.
That's a big commitment for both the young generation and the old generation.
Yeah.
And let's talk more about the politics engagement. I've seen in the Iraqi report that young people are interested in politics. Mm-hmm. They're engaged, but they don't want to. They're interested, but they don't want to get more engaged in the political, in the political sphere. What does that tell you? Is it common, by the way? Again,
absolutely common. I mean, really, really common. I think around the world you are seeing some really, really low levels of engagement with politics. I mean, you could do a whole series of episodes about where that comes from and what that means. So it is common. It is worrying, I think. The counter side to it, that means it's less worrying, I suppose, is people are not necessarily engaged with formal politics, but as I said, they're finding other ways to have their voice heard, other ways to influence. But I don't think that should be one thing or the other. I think, you can be active in your community, you can volunteer, you can go on social media and talk to people, you can make forums, you can start up organisations, you could engage with Sasa, you could do any of these things. But you can and should also engage with the process. So why don't people? I think, again, in the UK, around the world, there's low levels of trust. And everyone has to look to themselves about, well, why is that? Why don't people trust politicians? I have to say one thing that I found through doing Next Generation is I think politicians often want to listen to young people at certain times, perhaps when they've got something to do, perhaps around an election. Again, that's not an Iraqi issue, that's global. And then after an election, suddenly the young people don't seem as important anymore. And, then you go, well, obviously people are going to be disengaged, disillusioned with that. So I think everyone should look to themselves and say, okay, what's my role here? So if you're a politician, listen, but make sure you're listening all the time and trying to listen actively and sort of engage actively. It's not just about bringing a few young people into a room and nodding and then sending them away. It's about really sitting down together and saying, what can we make together? How do we co-create policies? And young people as well have to go, okay, it's all very well, I can protest, I can be angry about something, or I can be disillusioned. What am I actually going to do to make it better? Again, it's not about there's young people here and it's older people who are often the politicians over here. People working together, and that makes sense. But I think sometimes politicians promise an awful lot, maybe that they can't follow through with, and then people get disillusioned. But then if you're a young person, what are you asking for? Are you asking for things that are reasonable? Are you playing your part as well? So it's about a shared commitment. Mm. So we call it Next Generation Iraq because we say, right, well, these people are going to be the future. They'll be the leaders. They'll be the businessmen and women, the entrepreneurs, the educators. And that's great. And they'll take that role that is now being held by this generation of politicians. But actually, this young generation, they've got lots to do now. They've got agency. They've got things they can do. They've got a lot to say. So actually, it's all generations. So we focus on what young people say because often they're ignored. But actually, everyone should really be working together.
Yeah, because what I've had in mind is that the problem is researchers need to focus more on developing democracy, because I think the numbers show that people don't trust democracy as it works today.
Yeah, and because it needs to look different everywhere. There are core principles, everyone has a vote and everyone's vote counts, or everyone at the age of majority, whatever that is, and that vote counts. Okay, and your vote is the same as the next person, so my vote would be the same as yours. That's a really core principle. You have free and fair elections. There are core principles of democracy, but then what it looks like in a certain country, it has to adapt to the country. So you don't come in and impose that on someone else. Again, it's about listening and it's about finding a way forward. It's about recognizing that you're going to disagree. You might not always get the things that you want. You may disagree incredibly strongly with the next person, but are you listening to them? Are you trying to work out why they're saying the thing they're saying? Is your heart open? Is your mind open? Democracy doesn't work if you think you're just going to get all the things that you want. And that doesn't work, you could have school elections or university elections or in a business. It's about, you have to learn to disagree and say, okay, the next time there's an election, I will stand or I will vote for my guy, and hopefully it will work a little bit better then. We talk a lot about building peace through the organisation. The British Council talks about building peace and prosperity for everyone. But peace is really complicated. Peace isn't just about everyone agrees with each other. It's absolutely not.
I wish it was that easy.
But, so peace is going, okay, there'll always be conflict, there'll always be disagreement. So how do you manage it well? How do you manage it effectively? And one way to do that is to make sure people are included and heard, and then you try and find a way together.
That's brilliant. Research to action. That's a big question for researchers. Let's get to researchers a bit. Research to action is a big issue for researchers. I mean, they do research. Yeah. They have impact measurements, the impact factor, the site score, but do they really have influence? What do you think?
I think so, but you then need to. I think researchers. Probably two things. You need to be realistic. So when I'm a researcher or I'm working with researchers and I think, realistically, what can I achieve? What can this one piece of research achieve? On its own, unlikely to be a huge amount. So you have to see it as part of a body of work. We talk about like a knowledge ecosystem, if you know what I mean. So that there's a whole world of knowledge out there and we've all got something to contribute to it. So I think firstly, be realistic. You've got to think that research to practice to policy change can take a really long time. So you've got to be in it for the long haul and be prepared to keep measuring that. Follow the citations. It could be 10 years later, you'll see a piece of research you did is being cited in a policy document, and that's important. That's a win, okay? That's a win. But on a really practical level, for the researchers out there who are listening, when you start off, when you've got your question that you're asking or your hypothesis that you're putting forward, because we're remembering research is essentially, systematic data collection to answer a question or test a hypothesis, right? Why are you asking the question? Who are you asking it of? What are you going to do when you have your findings? What impact do you want to have? So what audiences do you need to reach? How do you reach those audiences? Don't just start off going, I want to ask this question because it's interesting. You need to have a sense of the journey at the beginning. You need to have a sense of where it is you're trying to go. You need to realise that you might not get there, or things might happen halfway through, and you'll have to evolve it a little bit. But you need a really strong sense of your audience. You need a strong sense of maybe the participants you're going to be working with, and you need to be sensitive to their needs, so you're not being extractive and just taking data away from them. And think, okay, if I want something that's for policymakers, which policymakers? I have colleagues still. Sorry if my colleagues are listening to this. I see sometimes people go, we want to reach policymakers. And I was like, well, who? Which policymakers? In which country? In which community? At what level? Like a town council or federal government? What is it? Who do you want to reach? Okay, where are they? Are you just going to give them a really big document that they won't read? Are you going to give them a brief? Do you expect them to read it? Are you going to have some round tables? Get the value out of your research. I think too often, and I know I've done this as well in the past, is, you finish your piece of work, you hand it over and you go, job done, thank you very much. No, keep going back to it, keep using it, make cartoons out of it, make drawings, get people to make infographics, make films, go on podcasts, do things.
That's your idea, right?
Do things that get it out there, so that you've got a range of different audiences and they keep hearing it over and over and over again. I think that's important. So, to your original question, researchers can absolutely have an impact because, frankly, evidence-based policy is absolutely crucial. It's crucial for Iraq, it's crucial for the UK, it's crucial wherever you are in the world. So if your research is good and you've done your homework and your methodology is sound and you've done it properly, if at the start of it you've got a sense of where you want to go and who you're going to get it to, that's how you'll have impact. You might not change the world with one piece of research, but you can make a difference if you've thought it through.
Okay, so what's your suggestions for the researchers who want to work on the Iraqi report of the next generation? How to build up?
How to go up? Well, yeah, read it again, listen to it, think about it, talk about it with other researchers, talk about it with, the people in your circle, and pick out the areas that you think you can focus on, because there's a lot in there. As you said, it's quite long, it's quite rangy. What might be the things? Are you particularly interested in women in leadership? Are you particularly interested in young people in the environment and the change they can make? Take your area, take what you want to do, and then, get out there with it. Good thing about research, I think good research always leads to more research. You're going, why this particular thing? Or why the difference between Kurdistan and or why the difference between young people in Erbil and big people in Baghdad? Go and find out a little bit more. Come up with another plan, get some more funding to do some more research, talk to universities. It always carries on. But I think if you've got this good piece of research, which I think Next Generation Iraq is, then, start those conversations. If you want to have a particular area, pull out the bit that people in your local government are really passionate about and say, look, we've got some evidence here of what young people are saying. We think they're interested. This looks like an issue. How can we work together on this? Do you recognise this? Do you understand? Is there anything I can help you with? Things like that. Again, it's open heart, open mind, and looking for solutions.
That's really a great idea. Like for policy centers, for research think tanks in Iraq, how could they build up on the Iraq report's results and findings, do you think?
I would be loath to sort of tell them how to do that, because I know there's lots of amazing researchers here. I know there's a really thriving research community. I know upstairs at the moment in the station, there's a dialogue going on that I shall be going back to after this, and I'm pretty sure upstairs right now they are answering that. So in a way, it's not really for me to tell people. I'm always happy if people want to talk to me about it.
Coming from a research director and research and insight director, that's going to be a good idea.
Yeah, it's true. No, I'm always happy to say, what's best. Talk about your ideas, but I would be uncomfortable about going. You know what, you guys, you need to do this beyond kind of what I've just said. It's more, I would always want to have a dialogue with people and go, okay, what do you think? And then maybe I can make some suggestions about, okay, you want to do it this way? Let's talk about what that looks like. I'm sure my colleagues, Salman and Mariam and others at the British Council would go, yeah, okay, I think we can help with that. Or let's think about doing this. It's one of the reasons I'm really excited to be back here. Because the first year I came in 2023 we were just starting the process. So we were starting to talk to researchers and we were getting people kind of ready, and there was lots of interest. And you have to understand how lovely it is for me to get to talk about research, that people are interested, because sometimes at home they're not that interested. I don't get invited onto people's podcasts in the UK. And it's amazing. It's amazing that media turn out and so many young people turn out. And then, I came back last year when we were just finishing the research and we were just starting to share the findings. And now coming back a year on to talk to people about, what they've done so far, what has changed, what people are thinking about, what they want to take forward, what they've been doing over the last 12 months. That's that momentum that is still there. So I really hope I can come back next year or the year after, and again see what keeps moving forward. But if you genuinely want me to say, what do I think people should do? The only thing I would say is if you're thinking as a researcher or policymaker, right, take the spirit on board of the way that we do Next Generation. So we have these three things we say. It's about listening to young people. So I always go, listening. Amplifying the voices, so those of us who have got networks, such as yourselves or the other people we work with, or the British Council, use your networks to make sure those voices are being heard, because young people can be really marginalised, I think, from the policy setting. So let's use our networks to ensure that isn't happening, that young people have a seat at the table, not just as decoration or youth washing, but it's a real seat at the table, that they have their voice. And then translate that into policy, because we all want to see evidence-based policy, because that works better. But I think the other spirit of Next Generation, I guess, is this participatory, creative approach that we take to it. So it's rigorous, right? We've got the methodologies, we know what we're doing. We do literature reviews, lots of things that people would recognise. Lit reviews, we do a survey that's representative, we do interviews and focus groups and other things. But then we encourage people to be quite creative in how they do that, to really, really bring their whole selves to the research. To be participatory. So it isn't just asking young people what they think, but saying, are these the right questions to ask? What would you like to see us do? What do you think the important things are? Not what we think the important things are. We say, here's a framework, a few things we want to talk about. What else is important to young people in Iraq right now? Because how would I know? I'm neither Iraqi nor a young person. So be participatory, be creative, be transformative in the research approach. Right? You're trying to make a difference. This isn't just something that you're publishing because it's nice and it'll help you get your PhD. No, you're transformative. You're trying to make a difference. And my favourite word at the moment, I think, is be curious, right? Always be curious. Always ask why. Always listen. Always try and understand what is going on. The best researchers are reflexive in that they think about themselves and they try and understand their motivations and how that impacts on others, and they're curious about the world around them.
So it's curiosity and asking the right question.
Yes.
That's really great. Let's talk a bit about mobility. The young people like to change where they sit. They want to change their countries. They want to work somewhere else. That's what I've seen in the report.
Yep.
What do you think of that? Is that like a pattern that has been going on for a long time, or is it for like this generation?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it's certainly a pattern, again, across the next generations. And interestingly, Next Generation UK, it was a large amount of people, I think it was 71% or 78% of young people in the UK said they would consider moving abroad for study or work or living. And actually the UK media picked this up and said, oh no, how terrible, this is awful. And I said, well, it's true. There are push factors, right? There are reasons young people in the UK wanting to move abroad, and it's because of similar, employment issues. There's real issues, housing issues. Rent is very high in the UK. It's really hard for young people at the moment there. So there's kind of factors that push them away. But there's pull factors as well that are positive. And I was like, well, take that as a positive. Young people want to go and work abroad or study abroad for a bit. They want to open their minds. They want to open their minds to other cultures. They want to learn languages, that they want to experience the rest of the world. And that's great, okay? That's amazing. So it's not for everyone, but I have that there, that it's a really positive thing. What we ask in Iraq and in other countries, yes, do you want to work or study abroad for a while? And loads of people say yes, but not necessarily forever. I want to go, I want to learn, maybe I want to improve my education, or I want to get some work experience I can't get here, and then I want to come back. Because I tend to find wherever we are in the world a really strong sense of commitment to country, patriotism, if you want. So I think that's a positive, and I think that's a positive in Iraq. Obviously, there are other reasons. Those push factors to do with unemployment, to do with wages, to do with housing. Yeah, those are significant. They're very significant in Iraq, and they are significant for other countries. And clearly that's something that politicians need to think about. But your question, is it new? I don't think so. I think people from all over the world have always wanted to go out and better themselves, and sometimes they do that permanently, and other times they go away and then they come back again. We are humans. We are curious about the wider world. I think there's obviously a greater pull factor now because so many people have social media. They can see a much wider world out there. They can see the opportunities that are there for them, and they want to grab them with both hands. I think that's old as time, to be honest. It's just that it's a lot more obvious now. When I was a girl, when I was a teenager, I knew there were opportunities maybe that I could go and study in Europe, or you could go to the US, but I probably didn't have much sense of a wider world out there and what opportunities there would be, and I certainly couldn't see the lives of other people out there. But so in that sense the world has shifted. And I remember again the 2016 Next Generation UK, one of the young people said in the interviews, our worlds don't have borders the way that maybe like my generation did. They don't really see it like that. They see a much more open world. And I know that's not to everyone's taste, but I think if you're on social media, if you're gaming, which I don't do, you could be gaming, you could be sitting in your room and you're gaming with people from whoever else.
The world,
yeah. And I think that's quite special. I think that makes people appreciate what they have at home, but they can see this wider world and they kind of want to have a piece of it. And I can't blame them for that.
Yeah. And your optimism had me connecting the dots.
Uh-huh.
If people want to experience life more with education, maybe going out of their countries would give them that sense of experience.
Like leaving home, you're discovering yourself in a different setting, pushing yourself, seeing what you can be. That's extraordinary. I mean, that's resilience. I think it's what you don't want is a sense always where people feel that they have no other choice. They're making the choice positively. This is something I want to do, and then, I will want to do something else. Some people are, very nomadic. Other people go away, get a master's degree or get some experience, and then they come and they put that to good use back where they come from.
Christine, we're coming to the end of the podcast.
Okay.
Anything you want to add?
No, I think I've talked at you an awful lot. This is great. It's lovely to be back at the station. It's great to be back with Sasa. And genuinely, I'm sure this sounds, maybe all your guests say this, I think Iraq is a really, really special place. I feel, I was quite overwhelmed when I first came here. I got really lucky because I was taken to the museum. And I studied, classics and history when I was younger, and to see some of the cultural heritage you have in Iraq is genuinely humbling and kind of mind-blowing, and I wish I could see more of the country than I have, and inshallah I will get to do that one day. But that's a lovely thing from the research. Again, if we want to end on a really positive and optimistic note, I think, the young Iraqis take such pride in their language, and I'm ashamed to say I have no Arabic. But they take such pride in their culture and their cultural heritage and what you have here. And I hope that, more people will get to engage with that. I can imagine the cultural tourism industry here could be so huge. I think that really, if you read between the lines in the next generation research in Iraq, you can see that. So it's great to see that. It's great to see the optimism of young people. And I'm just really looking forward in the future to carry on working with them and all of you on that.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much. Thanks. Everyone, and I wish you can have time to view the report. The report is on the British Council website. It's in Arabic and in English. Thank you.
Thank you.